Hi, I'm Zach Mahalski, and today I'll be interviewing my friend Sam Krabenhoff. So, Sam, I'd like to say thank you for sitting down with me today, and congratulations on getting into med school.
Thank you.
So, first question to start things off: what do you think best prepared you for applying to med school?
Yeah, it's hard to give a single response to that question. I think that in terms of actually knowing what healthcare would be like as a profession, working at One South Park, which is one of UW's outpatient clinics, was really important for me.
Okay.
Sort of lucked into a job freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Had a family friend who had a job working at the clinic and just told me about a job posting in the MRI department.
Okay.
So I was basically a medical assistant for all of college. I quit within the last month, working to facilitate MRI exams and working with the patients and making sure they were safe and things like that. And I don't need to get into that much about the details of the job, but I think having that experience and working with a team of other healthcare providers and just getting an idea for what it was like to be a healthcare professional, even
Right.
if a low-level one, was important for me to know that patient care was something that I wanted to do with my life.
So, did you, when coming out of high school and coming into college, did you know I need to eventually find a job that's gonna be kind of centered towards what I want to do eventually down the road?
It did. Yeah, I think maybe it's common for people to come into college being pre-med. Actually, I know that that's the case, but I thought that I had an advantage, and it's weird to call it an advantage, but I had an experience in high school. I know you know something about it that confirmed that was something that I was definitely at least interested in.
Right.
Being that my best friend and roommate, who's entirely healthy now, and has made a full recovery, had a cancerous brain tumor in high school, missed our entire senior year, and was luckily able to graduate just based on accommodations that they made for him, which was fortunate. But I spent a whole bunch of time in the hospital and around healthcare professionals, and before the surgery, and just that anxiety during the 14-hour surgery for the tumor removal, and afterwards when he was, just it was so hard to communicate with him, and he just was so much different than the friend that I had for most of my life, and it was a weird experience, and one that I'm not sure any 17-year-old could be ready for in a sense, but impactful in the sense that it was moving, seeing what those professionals did working with their patients and meeting other patients outside of math so I like I said, because he's fully healthy again and entirely who he was before he got sick and things like that, I think of it as a fortunate experience and one that I'd never hope for him to have to go through again, or if we could rewind the tape, of course I'd never want him to have to go through it, but as an outsider's perspective, I think that I benefited a lot in terms of my professional outlook, so that helped push me down that pathway, I think, pretty early on.
So just being inspired by the results that you saw him go through, being inspired by the people that were surrounding him, and just seeing the job that they were doing, it was kind of like, wow, they were making such a big difference, and they're just solving this huge problem that's related, I'm a part of basically, and I'm involved with, and just that was that click moment, so to speak, kind of for you.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
When you were applying, besides the job, did you think there was anything that you had that made you really stand out as a candidate for med schools?
It's tough, I mean, med school, and this is true of a lot of healthcare professional application systems, but medical school, similar to those, is it's really competitive, right? And it's supposed to be hard because they want healthcare professionals to be, some of the best, and that's just part of the system. And so I think one of the hardest parts about being pre-health on campus is feeling like you're surrounded by other people who are just like you and who are doing the same things, and trying to see where you stand out from them is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
And obviously numbers are not anyone's preferred way of getting in. They weren't mine either, and I don't think that they are, the thing that made me unique, because everybody's got numbers. It's sort of a necessary, maybe not evil, but just a necessary aspect that everyone has to have if they want to be competitive for applications. And so I think my professional experience is probably more than anything else stood out. I've already talked about One South Park a little bit. I also had some research experiences that I think probably reflected well. And, you know, I worked at Research Park just on the west side of Madison for a summer. And I know that a lot of people do research, but I was fortunate in that the manager or the person that I worked directly underneath gave me a lot of freedom to carry out experiments, to sort of design my own experiments, and even to put our heads together. And this is a PhD scientist, you know, so I realized that I knew nothing compared to him. Right. But just I think that he helped me learn a lot more about the science that was done there by the fact that even if we weren't really collaborating, in retrospect, it's hard to say that we were because I was an undergrad and I am an undergrad.
But he was able to take it to he knew you knew to an extent, and he's like, well, he's not going to be able to directly help me, but we can work together and I can help him along the way, like give him information too, so then he does feel like I am contributing to this whole process.
Yeah, so I think it was a really positive experience for me in terms of the research that we did. And just making me feel like I had some control over what was done. The other experience, and it was a short-term commitment, but July and August of last summer, I again, you know, was fortunate and had the chance to work in a lab at Harvard, which I know it sounds all prestigious and all this stuff, and it was really just a connection that got me there, you know. But being surrounded by those people and being able to be involved in some of the research that's done there, and high-level research is done all over the world, but it's hard to argue that it's done at a higher level anywhere other than Harvard, you know. And so it was just being immersed in that environment was really stimulating, and I think being able to talk about that experience and the fact that it did have some indirect relationships to healthcare and that it was public health research probably was one thing that stood out on my applications.
Yeah. So just like the multiple and different situations that you got to experience, you think just helped you as more like overall.
Yeah.
And you got to learn from all of those experiences too. Just like, all right, this is one research, this is public health, and like your job, 3 different, not really connected things, but they all pertain in general speaking to what you really want to do.
Exactly.
Gotcha. What was the most stressful part about applying, besides just waiting to hear back from schools?
Definitely the MCAT. The application process really isn't that bad. It takes some time, but it's a lot of it at least is brainless. It's just retyping your transcripts or I mean, writing secondary applications and things like that aren't brainless, but it's easy to talk about why you want to, you know, be a medical student at a given school in 250 words. I mean, that's just, you thought so much about the process and about the schools that that's sort of the easy part once you're that far into it.
Yeah.
The MCAT, though, is such a bear. And I have so many friends right now that are in the middle of it. And it was funny. I basically studied for it alone. I just didn't have any close friends that were studying at the same time as me. It was right when the new test came out. So I think a lot of people wanted to let there be a few iterations of it before they really jumped into it and took it seriously.
Yeah.
So I was sort of the unlucky, you know, one of the unlucky first few people that took the test. But it's a lot of time spent. You know, I didn't have much of a social life last semester. You know, last spring semester of junior year. And I knew that would be the case, although I'm not sure. I think I underestimated how much that would be the case. You know, I think that I just went out and enjoyed myself 2 or 3 times all semester.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, whether people choose to drink or not, just even being able to go out and socialize and sort of not think about school or professional school for a night is, I mean, that's really valuable, and everybody needs that, and I lost that for a whole semester.
Yeah.
So it's hard to de-stress when you can't be around the people who usually de-stress you. Yeah. You know, so it wasn't a fun experience. I was fortunate that I only had to take it once. That I did well on it the first time, you know, and I think it's what helped me get into school. But stress-wise, I was never more stressed out than when I was studying for the MCAT.
Yeah. So as stressful as it was, all the hard work, as cliche as it is, it pays off in the end.
Yeah.
Which is nice to always see. And when you open that email, it says, "This is your score." It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
What kind of advice, say there's a freshman that they've like, oh, I want to go pre-med. Well, any advice, like one piece of advice if you could,
I had, and I think just about everybody who wants to go to medical school is happy-go-lucky initially. And it just seems like you can do it if you want, but there's so much more to it than that. And I know that that's true of many professional pathways. But I can remember spending a night in my dorm, just right over there at Celery, and I stayed in. It was a Friday or Saturday night, and just thinking about how seriously I was going to have to take it if I wanted to get there eventually. And, you know, I made this sticky application on MacBooks, and I'm still stunned that anything I wrote down my freshman year could have any shred of wisdom to me now. You know, but I just have this series of little bits of advice, and I still have it there, and every once in a while, if I'm just dragging my feet in school or in any commitment that I have, I read it, and it's a small pick-me-up. I'm not really one for inspirational quotes, but it's sort of, I sort of like the fact that it's me that wrote it, and it's kind of like I'm, you know, giving myself a little bit of a boost. And one of the things that it says, and this might not be very tangible advice for someone who's hoping to go to medical school, is just says, don't forget that this is all supposed to be fun. And it's really, really, really easy to lose sight of that as a pre-med student, as a pre-health student in general, because there are so many different commitments that you're juggling. And, you know, I think that people will lose sight of where they want to be eventually if they don't have fun along the way. And I think it's easy to look at being pre-med and all of the things that go into it as a means to an end, which is medical school or being a physician. But I tried to always remind myself that the means themselves were important and that you're supposed to have fun during that time. And so it's not an easy thing to do, but I think to current freshmen or underclassmen or people that are just starting to think about medical school more seriously, I would just say, as cheesy as it is, or as maybe unhelpful as it would seem, because they're expecting this wisdom that will just get them into medical school, and that's not possible. But just to remind themselves, whether it's through that dumb little sticky on my computer desktop or otherwise, that the process is supposed to be fun, and it's hard, but if you're not enjoying what it takes to get there, then once you're there, I don't know how much fun you'll have either. So just keeping in mind that the process itself, too, is supposed to be enjoyable.
So as serious as it is, you just have to make sure you appreciate all the little steps along the way. Because when you get there, you'll get to look back and be like, well, that was actually fun. Like, I'm happy I did this process and that.
Totally. I mean, you know, if you get into medical school, which is a big accomplishment, and you're looking back and you threw away so much of what's supposed to be the college experience, I think it's harder to say that it was worthwhile pushing yourself that way, whereas I don't feel like I missed out on any aspects of my college experience, in part because I was able to remind myself that if I wasn't having fun at any point, and the MCAT's like sort of an exception, but I didn't have much fun with that, but just in a general sense, you know, if these commitments weren't things that I enjoyed, it was probably an indication that I shouldn't be going down this path to begin with, and so being able to have fun made a difference.
Cool. So just to wrap up, besides the MCAT being the most stressful part, gotta appreciate the little things, can't take life too seriously, and just really be inspired and truly want what you want to do.
I would say that that's all the case,
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you're looking forward to med school? You're really looking forward to it?
I am. I signed a lease last week. Woo! It's down by the hospital, and I think it's going to be fun in the sense that I think it's going to be what I prepared for. Nobody calls the classwork fun, but I think just the taking the next big step towards the ultimate goal, which is to be a physician and to, you know, bear that big responsibility in other people's lives. Like, I saw people, you know, I saw so many people have that really profound impact for Matt. My buddy who got sick, and I think that opportunity is a really special thing to be able to be a part of, and so I am excited for medical school, not in the sense that I'll be spending God knows how many hours every week studying, but in the sense that it will get me towards a place that I really want to be.